All right, folks. I'm Hutch. This is after the interview. Derrick Brite's still with me. We're still chatting. I just took a short break between the main part of the episode and this, where I told him the god awful, hair raising story of my first paper in seminary and what a terrifying experience that was. And then before we even had the episode, start, Derrick sends me this text message that says, "Remind me to tell you the story about." Hang on, let me make sure I get this right. Remind me to tell you about my recent vomiting at Brazilian Jiu Jitsu story. So I've got to hear this, and the listeners have got to hear this too. So, what happened?
Yeah. All right. So, a little bit of backstory here. About 10 years ago, I used to train pretty regularly, and I was always a white belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I never took it long enough to advance or anything like that. And I mainly, for several years, focused on just Muay Thai. And I love Thai boxing. I love everything about it. And I had to stop because people who know me will know that I have a pretty serious issue with migraines and have since I was a little boy. And I got to where I couldn't even take a jab. I mean, just a baby jab would send me into a migraine. So I had to stop. Well, anyways, we moved to Alabama, right? And finally I decided, you know what? I'm woefully out of shape. I grew up in a household of martial artists. Like that was, ingrained in us as we were young. It was one of the first things I did. My dad and brothers are still martial artists. So I said, it's time. I found a good gym to train at. And I said, I'm going to put forth the time and effort in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because I've always been fascinated by it. And it's a lifelong process. And anyways, so I go down there, get the information, and they say, okay, what class would you like to be your first class? And then we'll do after you try it out, we can talk about pricing, all those different things. And I said, well, I'll
Sure.
come to the 6 a.m. class on Wednesday because 6 a.m. is kind of right up my alley of training. So Tuesday night,
Okay.
I don't know what I had for dinner. I can't remember. And it's Alabama. There's no telling what I ate. And so I'm up all night running to the bathroom thinking I'm going to be sick, but I never do. And that those times where you have acid reflux so bad that you can't lay down. And
Yes.
so I was up all
Yes.
night and I was praying and I couldn't just cancel, especially at 6 a.m. You can't just call them at 5:45 and be like, hey, I'm not coming today. Because they'd already said people
Yeah.
bail out
Yeah.
all the time on the 6 a.m. class. And so I wanted to show that I was serious. And I'd trained before and I knew that I was woefully out of shape. But I knew what to expect. So I get
Right.
there,
Sure.
and the whole drive there, which is about 40 minutes from my house because I live in Aliceville, and everything's 40 minutes from here. And I am like praying, God, please don't let me throw up because I felt like I was going to throw up just driving. So please, Lord, don't let me throw up.
Right.
So I get there, feeling terrible, and we start the warm up. And of course, I'm out of shape, and I'm jogging around doing all these things. About 5 minutes into the warm up, I can definitely feel my stomach rumbling, but I didn't feel like I was going to puke yet. But I needed to know where's the nearest trash can and where's the bathroom because it's going to happen. So I go up to the coach and I
Right. Yeah.
said,
It's coming.
yeah, it's coming. So I go up to Coach Jake Reeves at Relentless MMA in Columbus, Mississippi, and I said, hey, Coach, if I need to throw up, where's the quickest place? So he's explaining it to me and saying, about 10 feet away off the mat is a trash can, but if you can make it, the bathroom's all the way in the back, pretty big facility. And I said, okay, thanks. And as I'm talking to him,
Oh
I begin
no.
to projectile vomit. And I projectile vomit onto the mat, all right? And it's like continue, and I'm like,
Oh no.
it was like stomach virus on level 10. Like, these go to 11 right here. I mean, and so I am running off the mat as fast as I can, throwing up the whole way as I'm running. I take one step off the mat. Of course, I'm barefooted. I get off the mat. I
Yeah.
slip in my own vomit, and I go airborne. My feet go straight up in the air, and I'm having to try to practice break falls as I'm falling. I fall flat on my back. I don't know how I didn't crack my head open. I fall flat on my back in a pool of my own vomit, still throwing up. Everybody's just standing there looking. I get up and I begin to vomit in the trash can. And I'm like, so I'm vomiting in the trash can, and it's vomits everywhere. I projectile all over the cooler, all over some of the equipment, like all over my
Oh
clothes.
no.
And he looks at me, and what was funny is before you start that day, they sit down and they ask you, like, what is your perfect experience? Like, if I could wave a magic wand, what would your perfect experience on your first day be? And I hate those kind of questions. I legitimately almost said that I don't throw up. Well, I look up at him and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, this was not listed on my perfect first day experience. And then I begin to throw up again. So he brings me a towel and we're cleaning it up. And it's this old man who's there, whose his son was there training, looks up at me. He goes, "Hey, Derrick, it's in your hair." And so I'm like brushing my hair out with this towel. I go to the bathroom. I clean up. They bring me gi pants. It was a no gi class, but they bring me gi pants and a t-shirt. And they say, "Do you want to finish the class?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to finish the class." So I finished the class, all right, and he didn't let me roll live at the end. We only did the drills. So I did the drills, finished the class, ended up signing up, all those things. So I get home, and it's like 7:45 by the time I get home, 8 o'clock, something like that. And I take a shower, and I'm miserable, and I'm hurting. And well, that was Wednesday morning. I have church Wednesday night. Well, as the day goes on, my ankle swells up. I sprained my ankle running and slipping in my own vomit. And so,
That's just insult to injury, man.
right. So Wednesday night comes around, and I've always been kind of weird about like telling people that I train or whatever, because like there's a lot of baggage that comes out with that. And I'm not a dude bro kind of guy.
Sure.
And
Sure.
and so I get there and to church, and I'm having to wear like these slip-on shoes that don't tie because my ankle's swollen. And I can't put on a boot or a shoe or anything. And then I always teach
Right.
standing up, and I had to bring a stool out, and I'm sitting at a stool with a little music stand teaching a Wednesday night Bible study and prayer meeting. And people are like, "What's wrong with your ankle? Like, why are you standing up?" And I'm like, "Oh, I slipped at the gym." And they were like, "This is Aliceville. What gym?" I'm like, "Oh, Columbus." "When was this?" And I was like, 6 o'clock in the morning. They're like, "What gym's open at 6 o'clock in the morning in Columbus?" And they're like pressing me the whole time. And eventually I have to tell,
Sure.
everyone afterwards, here's what happened. And so I was injured for like 3 days. Couldn't roll, couldn't do anything. My ankle was swollen. And finally it was better and everything. But like my first day, and so the next day that I went back, I have a bit of a self-deprecating sense of humor anyways. We go back the next day, we're stretching out, and it's a few minutes before class, and the coach is like, "Hey, we got a few minutes before class starts. Anybody got any good jokes or anything?" I said, "Well, it could be story time." And he was like, "You sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And so then he tells the story to the whole class. And anyways, it was very funny. But
Oh,
yes, so that was a few weeks ago. And yeah, ever since then, he's like, "Hey, big guy, take it easy, okay? Like, you don't have to push too hard. Like, you'll get there. You'll get there. Like, eventually, you'll be in shape.
right.
But right now, like, just chill out." So there you go. That
Oh,
was my
I,
recent
I
vomit
feel,
story.
man, I feel awful for you, man. That's
Yeah,
terrible.
it was awful. It was pretty awful. So. Thankfully that's over with, but now I'm like it's like PTSD or something. I'm so concerned every time I roll now. I'm like, "Oh, nope, got to get up," and it's like, just afraid I'm going to puke on somebody. So
Yeah.